Hey everyone, this is Nikachu, and we are here for the semi-finals of Grand Prix Vancouver. It is Merfolk versus the deck of the weekend, Death Shadow, played by none other than Sam Black. So what can I say about this matchup beforehand? I've never played against this version of Death Shadow. I was aware that it existed. I had a rough idea of what was in the list. Based online, I knew that its two main win conditions were Death Shadow and Tarmogoyf. Because of this deck's rise to prominence, I put the Tidebinder mages into my sideboard and one in my main deck. So decks like Death Shadow, the Bushwhacker Zoo deck, Burn, and something else I'm missing encouraged me to play Tidebinder Mage for this weekend. And that's about it. And another something to keep in mind is that, I mean, I'm not uncomfortable or anything about going into this matchup, but it is different from a normal Death Shadow deck. The original Death Shadow deck has like Swift Spears and Step Links and leans very hard on what's it called? The come on, what is that thing called? Teamer Battle Rage. It leaned very heavily on Teamer Battle Rage. This deck doesn't. This deck is just much more attrition based. And yeah, that's about it. Some things to say about Sam's list opposed to other lists is that he's playing with Liliana, the Last Hope. That thing is much more dangerous against me. Well, I mean, Liliana the Veil is also dangerous, but Liliana the Last Hope is going to work no matter what because it can snipe off things like Master of Waves, Silvergill Adept, Curse Catcher, Vendilion Clique, etc. So it's a very, very strong card. Yeah, so never playing against a deck before does have its dangers because they may not play as optimally as I would like. Merfolk is fantastic if I know exactly what I'm up against and I've put a lot of reps in because, like, as I've walked away from this tournament, there's a lot of different ways that I might want to approach this matchup, and I'm going to explain them all to you as we go through the semifinals and the finals. This might be like the new Twin, where there's going to be a lot of mind games being played, and maybe how one side approaches the sideboard will change the other side and how they approach the sideboard. So let's just start it off. Fortunately, I was first seed, so I was allowed to go first. That's going to help me a lot. It's very convenient to go first. Don't have to worry about that darn Inquisition of Kozilek or Thoughtseize. And perhaps in cases like this where I have Curse Catcher and Spreading Seas in my hand, I can protect my Spreading Seas from Thoughtseize and Inquisition effects. So Sam immediately plays Mishra's Bauble, starts looking at the top of his library. Does he like that card? Does he not like that card? Because he has the option to just throw it away if he wants to. So it appears that he does like the card because otherwise he could fetch it away. And he plays Inquisition, and I do have the Spreading Seas in my hand, which is incredibly, incredibly powerful. I should mention that we get deck lists at the beginning of, before we play, and the most concerning thing for me when looking at this deck list was how many black sources does he have, how many red sources, how many green sources, how many white sources, just how many colors does he have. I believe he had 4 black sources of mana, pretty sure, and I think he had a balance of red sources and green sources, because I'm going to want to take him off as much mana as possible. Unfortunately, he plays the Godless Shrine, which is... The white mana is not particularly important to the deck. It is to the sideboard, but nothing in the main deck. So I'm shutting him off black, but I'm not taking him away against any of the other important colors. But whatever, I'm not going to complain. So this hurts Death Shadow badly. In the games where they have like just 1 or 2 lands... like 2 lands, then he can only cast like half his spells at once. The deck leans very, very, very hard on black mana. Very hard on black mana. Basically everything is black, except for maybe Tarfire and Tarmogoyf. So he finds a Blood Crypt. He's shuffling up. And he plays Thoughtseize. So I show him my hand. Go for it, Sam. Take whatever you want. I got Vendilion Clique, I have a Silvergill Adept, I have a Harbinger of the Tides, and I have a Mutavault. Which is not too bad. Clique is sort of nice. It's a flyer. Unfortunately, it dies to everything. Like all his removal spells. Tarfire, Collective Brutality, Liliana the Last Hope. What else? And Kolaghan's Command all kill Vendilion Clique. And for that reason, I would say that probably... Like, I really, really like Vendilion Clique. I think in terms of deck building, this is hands down the superior card. It is just so much better than Kira against decks like Red Green Valakut or Ad Nauseam or basically any combo matchup. So for that reason, I really like Vendilion Clique, but I do think that Kira is better in this matchup. You can pretty comfortably tap out with Kira and either force the Death Shadow player to use 2 removal spells on her, or maybe they can't even do that because their lands are sort of choked on Spreading Seas. So Sam correctly takes Silvergill Adept. It's, it's my only card advantage spell. So I draw Master of Waves. This changes everything about my hand. I mean, I could have, like, Vendilion Cliqued myself. But no, I'm going to Clique him and then see what's going on. It's interesting that he Tarfired there because, let's say I took the Tarfire. Like, was it even a very big deal? But whatever. So he lets me see his hand. And now, like, very often, the correct play here would be to take the Death Shadow. But unfortunately, I drew that Master of Waves. And he's got a Fatal Push in his hand. And Kolaghan's Command. Kolaghan's Command cannot hit Master of Waves because Master of Waves has protection from red. And if I were to take the Death Shadow, I don't know if just passing the turn back and forth favors me. Like, I'm going to take the Death Shadow, and he's going to draw a card. It can be another removal spell, or it can be another threat. I mean, it's not too hard for him to find, like, another threat. He's got enough card draw in the form of Mishra's Bauble and Street Wraiths to find another one of his 11 other threats that are in his deck, because he just needs to find another Death Shadow, Tarmogoyf, or the green sorcery tutor, Traverse the Underworld, or whatever the hell it's called. Also, in the event that he draws Street Wraith, he could technically cycle it and then play Kolaghan's Command and bring it back to his hand when he has enough mana to play it. So, I didn't really want to take the Death Shadow and then do nothing. I'm running out of cards in my hand as well, so, like, for example, if I play Harbinger, he could just blow it up with Kolaghan's Command and make me discard a card, which could be my Master of Waves. So I thought that was pretty awkward to play around as well. What else made this awkward? If we keep passing the turn back and forth, he can just draw things like Thoughtseize and take Master of Waves out of my hand. So that's also a problem with just passing the turn back and forth. So I didn't think I wanted this to go... I mean, I'm willing to play a long game, but I don't want to play it too long. And because Fatal Push lines up with my Master of Waves hand... And Master of Waves also is a little bit stronger because I have the Mutavault in play. So, and that I have, Spreading Seas. So I'm going to get 2 tokens, and my Mutavault's a 3/3 creature. So technically the Master of Waves is worth about 9 power on the board. And for that reason, I push towards taking the Fatal Push. But I must say that most of the time you should probably be taking the Death Shadow and hope that they just don't draw another creature for a little while. It's just that my hand just wasn't doing enough. So he's going to get a card. Lands himself a Tarmogoyf. Beautiful Tarmogoyf. And unfortunately for me, he can actually play it this turn. So I draw a Rajiri, which is sort of nice because I have this Harbinger in my hand. So when I reach 5 mana, I'm going to ideally I wind back the clock to make sure there's no other play that I can do. Because alternatively, I could play, for example, I could just pass the turn, let him try to attack with Tarmogoyf, and then just flash in Harbinger of the Tides. But I mean, he'll just blow it up with Kolaghan's Command. Or he can't play Kolaghan's Command right now. Oh no, but he can. I know he has a Bloodstained Mire in his hand. So I didn't think that was a very good idea. Also, I run the risk of him drawing a Thoughtseize and then Master of Waves is gone again. So I don't get too greedy. I don't really actually like to get too greedy with Master of Waves. If I have an opportunity to play it for just a few tokens, like 2 tokens is more than enough, then I prefer to do it. And Harbinger of the Tides in my hand is not bad. If I draw one more land, I can, for example, play Rejiri and tap bounce a creature. So my life total is incredibly healthy right now, so I don't feel like there's any reason for me to lose any of my tokens. At least not right now. And Sam has a Temur Battle Rage in his hand, and he just neglects to play it this turn. So we count up everything. Online, it's so much easier. They just tell me how big the Tarmogoyf is. And I actually missed that Tarfire made the Tarmogoyf a smidge bigger. Thought I was taking 5 damage, but not that big of a deal. That's another thing. Like, you know, because this is the first time I'm up against Tarfire, I do run the risk of making mistakes against some of these cards. If you've never played, I'm going to repeat this, I've said this many times in the past, if you've never played against a card ever before, then you run the risk of just making some stupid mistake against it. Unfortunately, I'm getting my play testing against Death Shadow here in the semifinals. Not really where you want to be. But fortunately, it plays enough like the old Death Shadow and enough like Jund that I'm not completely like out of the loop. So I believe I draw Spreading Seas here, if I'm not mistaken. If I drew a land, I would very likely play the Meririgiri, then Harbinger of the Tides, tap the Death Shadow, bounce the Tarmogoyf, and then attack for some amount of damage. How much could I attack for? I could attack for 7, put him down to 3, but then that would make the Death Shadow a 10/10 creature. I gotta be careful with how I'm tapping and attacking. I'm very, very cognizant of Temur Battle Rage. In the old Death Shadow deck, that's basically the only way I lost, was through Temur Battle Rage. I would make some block, and then they would Temur Battle Rage and get in through a ton of double strike damage. So I Spreading Seas. I take him off his next black source, which looks good. I'm happy. Spreading Seas completely wrecks this deck. Completely wrecks it. Get wrecked, Sam Black. And I play Harbinger of the Tides. I just bounce his Tarmogoyf. And I have no reason to get any damage. I mean, like, if I attack with Master of Waves on the 2 tokens, I'll just block the Master of Waves, take 4 damage, and should be very, very happy about that. Otherwise, I could, like, attack with 2 tokens, he just eats 1. It doesn't really get me anywhere. Ideally, against Death Shadow, I mean, it all depends on the board state, which is what's going to make this game very, very interesting to play strategically. But you don't want to get their life total too low. And I think the sweet spot for Death Shadow is to keep their life total somewhere between 7 and 10 against Merfolk. You know, because if they go too low, I just play like a Lord and swing for the win, for example. So unfortunately, my decisions are made incredibly easy. I find a Master of Waves. The Master's Brother has arrived. I'm going to get 6 tokens, which are now all 3/2s. I'm not sure if I'm working with perfect information here, because I don't remember what I know about Sam's hand. But like, I'm in a very good position where, I mean, even if I didn't draw the Master Waves, I actually had lethal on the board with that Master Waves, Harbinger of the Tides, and Mutavault if I drew a Lord. And the only thing I would be playing around would be Tarfire because he has only one red mana up. So Sam still has this Teamer Battle Rage, and then Sam does something that I really didn't expect from a pro like himself. It's when I was watching this replay, I was pretty surprised what he's about to do. I know he's facing down 1,000,000,000 tokens. It's 1,000,000,000. I got 1,000,000,000 damage coming in here. Collectively, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have like 16. I have 20 toughness. But the thing is, he just resigns. Like, I would figure that objectively, the best thing that you should do is try to play for a win. For example, he could just attack, just see how I block. Maybe I'm not going to block with just one token. I am going to try to play around Teamer Battle Rage. But maybe I throw a lot of tokens away in that block in order to play around that Teamer Battle Rage. He could conceivably let me try to make a mistake. But there was another problem. I was at 14 life. So if I blocked either one, like Tarmogoyf is only 6 power, so at most it can just do 12 damage, even with even if I didn't block, and then if I block the other one, I guess that's how he reasoned it. And there was no way for him to, he had no reach. So just assuming I do some two, but like I don't know, for example, it doesn't cost him anything to turn both of his creatures sideways. And if I somehow block the Tarmogoyf and don't block the Death Shadow, then he wins. Of course, if I just block each one, he just scoops up his cards at that point. So now let's talk about sideboarding. I take out the Dismembers, which may or may not be correct, because, well, I mean, Dismember felt, it was awkward. It was an awkward card to look at. Let's talk about the pros about Dismember. I think in general will kill a Death Shadow. I don't think Death Shadow wants to go below. For example, they need to be at 7 life in order to play around Dismember. On the other hand, if they go any further than that, they're in a lot of danger of just dying to some Island Walk Lords or just some Lords swinging in and killing them. I think, like I said, they're most comfortable at some sort of life total between 7 and 10 in this matchup. And if they get too low, then they run the risk of dying, of us just killing them. Because they could make a swing thinking they're going for the win, but then we Harbinger the thing back to their hand, and then we kill them on the crackback. So Dismember encourages them to push their life total really low in order to keep Death Shadow alive. So there's that going for it. Dismember also costs us life. I really like that I have, as you're going to see in this match and even against Josh, I like using my life total as a resource. I took quite a few hits from Sam's. I'm going to take quite a few hits from Sam's creatures because it allows me to keep my creatures alive and maybe attack them back. And if I'm paying for life, then I'm at much more risk of dying a lot sooner, of course. Dismember can be eaten by Collective Brutality. That's not pleasant. Dismember has trouble killing Tarmogoyf. This deck can reliably get Tarmogoyf to like 6 to 7 power, or even 8 power. Maybe 8 power is not reliable, but 6 to 7 is reliable. They play with Mishra's Bauble. They play with Mishra's Bauble. They have the Tarfire for tribal. They can make the Tarmogoyf pretty big. In addition, if they Inquisition or Thoughtseize my Spreading Seas away, then that goes into the garbage and makes the Tarmogoyf a lot bigger. So Dismember is going to have a lot of trouble killing the Tarmogoyf. Not that it's impossible. Like, I can make a block, let the damage happen, and then Dismember post-combat. But that still is a 2-for-1. I can Relic and kill it, but that's also uncomfortable. Like that, where it just sounds much more situational. On top of that, of course, Sam is playing with like 4 Inquisition, 4 Thoughtseize, so at his discretion, he could take the thing. So it's an awkward card. It doesn't guarantee, like, I guess the main problem is it doesn't guarantee killing either of the creatures. But I do decide to I decide to side in the two Tidebinder mages. I decide to side in the Dispels because it can counter Kolaghan's Command, which I think is one of the more powerful cards, or well, at least one of the most annoying cards, because it can blow up Vial. It can 2-for-1 me in a lot of situations, make me discard a card, make me kill a creature. What else can I say? It's yeah. So Dispel hits Kolaghan's Command, Tarfire, Temur Battle Rage, Fatal Push. Yeah, basically everything I really wanted to target. So I bring in Tidebinder Mage and the Relics. Relic is, I think, very, very, very good in this matchup because it can shrink Tarmogoyf and it can slow down or shut off, traverse the underworld. So in the end, I do take out Dismember. Something to consider in this matchup is that on the draw, Curse Catcher might be very, very weak. It might be. I would need to play more matches with this because, like, the most expensive card that Sam has in his deck on the play would be just Kolaghan's Command, but everything else can reliably get cast for 1 and 2, like Tarfire, Collective Brutality, Fatal Push, Traverse the Underworld. All those things are never going to get like, Curse Catcher's never countering those things. So for that reason, maybe some number of Curse Catchers could come out, and maybe some number of Master Waves can stay in. I'm not entirely sure if I ever want to have Master Waves staying in against Sam Black, because he just had so many answers. He had Liliana the Last Hope. Oh yeah, I took out Master of Waves. On the draw, Sam can end up being incredibly aggressive, very fast, and I don't want to have extremely expensive cards in my hand. So I don't want cards like Master of Waves in my deck, and it feels so bad to play this Master of Waves for 4 mana to let Sam Black blow it up for less mana, either with Fatal Push, Collective Brutality, Liliana the Last Hope. What else does he have? That might be it. He's got a lot of answers for Master Waves. He's got a lot of answers for Master Waves. I must say that this is going to be one of the more memorable matches I ever have. Because Sam Black's demeanor, his body language, was very unique to everyone else I've played in the last 3 years. It's impossible to see on camera, but only in person. Like he's moving, like he's drawing cards, but his whole body is incredibly still. The best way I can describe it is like I'm playing against a machine. He had no sense of stress or nervousness. I'm pretty calm and relaxed myself, but like every single one of my opponents showed some sort of strain or pressure, and Sam showed absolutely nothing, not a single crack in the entire match. He was incredibly collected. So I believe I have like a pretty poor hand in my hand. I believe it was like 2 Aether Vials, Silvergill Adept, something else. But the problem was that if I got it was something like 2 land, 2 Aether Vials, Silvergill Adept. Can't remember what else. Oh, maybe a Mutavault was one of my lands, but it was a very poor hand. It was just really bad. If I got Thoughtseize and he took my Silvergill Adept away, the hand was going to do nothing. So the deck it's like Jund. I know, like, against Jund you want to side out your Aether Vials, but because this deck can be so aggressive, I'm going to be keeping my Aether Vials in. Especially on the draw. So I go for another hand. Hopefully this looks a little better. I believe it does. I believe I have a good 6-card hand. Got me my Dispel. Got me a lot of things. Oh yeah, it's a 1-lander, and I keep it, and I put a land on top of my deck. So Sam bobbles himself. And I'm just waiting for impending doom. It's a bit tough. They're playing. I mean, they're playing with more Thoughtseize effects than the normal Jund deck. I mean, they're playing the full 4 Inquisition, 4 Thoughtseize. No hand. No one's allowed to have a hand. And he goes for Inquisition. Go for it, Sam. Go check it out. Read him and weep. My hand was very, very good. Okay, so we see Spreading Seas, like basically the best card we can have against them. Silvergill Adept is incredibly good. Tideminder Mage. Well, Tideminder Mage and Harbinger of the Tides are a bit awkward. For the most part, I don't really like Harbinger of the Tides here. Harbinger is really good if this was the classic Teamer Battle Rage Death Shadow deck, but still, Harbinger has the ability to hit the Death Shadow in combat. And, of course, Tideminder Mage can hit Tarmogoyf. So he goes for my Spreading Seas. He sees the trouble. So I do draw a land, I play an island, and I just pass. Not much I can do here. Sam's hand is not beautiful either. I mean, he's pretty far from doing anything. I think he kept a hand with quite a bit of lands, but it had the Mishra's Bauble and some filtering. Now, I guess I'm not exactly sure what he's trying to do. So he's going to fetch. He's going to fetch first. Actually, oh yeah, so he's just thinning his deck so that he can draw something off of the Street Wraith. Da-da-da-da. Draws Mishra's Bauble, which is a bit awkward because he wants this Mishra's Bauble before he uses the Street Wraith. But anyway, so he draws as many cards as he can to make a better informed decision about his Thoughtseize. Takes my Silvergill Adept. So my hand is now relatively poor, but fortunately Sam is not doing anything to me. We're just sort of passing the turn, and this sort of feels a little bit more like a normal game of Jund. There's the Bauble. And he just passes. Alright. So I draw Aether Vial, which I'm pretty excited about because I can't use this Tideminder Mage, or I don't want to use this Tideminder Mage or Harbinger of the Tides right now. I mean, if he Inquisitions or Thoughtseizes them away, whatever, go for it. I would rather risk. I would rather wait for something to hit the board. So Sam bobbles himself. He sees a card on top. Right now, I don't really have much to do. I just have to patiently wait and see what Sam does. Okay, so he sees a card on top, and he likes it, and he draws it off of his Bauble. These sort of things you have to keep in mind. Like, you got to get some idea, like, he found a card that he liked. Therefore, I have to respect his hand a little bit more than not. You know, it's like Serum Visions. If they go top, and they draw both the cards, then you have to give more respect to their hand. If they go bottom, then you can give less respect to their hand. So Sam finally finds Tarmogoyf, but I really don't care because I have not only Tideminder Mage and Harbinger of the Tides, but also a Dispel to back it up. I just found a Silvergill Adept, which is really, really good because Silvergill Adept will help me chain more of my stuff going into the future. And what I mean by that, like, if I can draw one more land, then I can start playing creatures on the battlefield and hold up Dispel while deploying them with Aether Vial. And as you see, I'm never playing any creatures with these islands. I don't want to get... I should say the moment I had this Aether Vial, I am playing around Kolaghan's Command the entire time, even though that Sam did not have Kolaghan's Command at the time that I played Aether Vial. Especially at this moment, now that I've drawn the Silvergill Adept, I think I'm going to draw enough gas throughout this game that I think I can win it from here, so long as I don't lose the Aether Vial. And so I don't care if he keeps blowing up my creatures with removal spells. I want to keep this Aether Vial on the board, and I don't want him to 2-for-1 me with Kolaghan's Command. Like, either him making me discard a card, or destroying a creature and returning Street Wraith from the graveyard. I don't want this Kolaghan's Command to ever resolve. And for that reason, but in addition to that, like, my mana, I'm in good shape right now because I have enough mana to work with at flash speed, despite the fact there's a Tarmogoyf on the board. So I really don't want to lose this Aether Vial, especially since my hand is starting to fill up with threats. A lot of threats. So we play. Here's an interesting thing. Sam didn't declare his attackers or anything like that, and I thought that was a very good idea. Let's say I am the Merfolk player and I am playing with Tidebinder Mage. By not declaring his attackers, he gives me the opportunity to make a mistake of not being able to use my Tidebinder Mage. Like, he's allowed to shortcut and just attack like this, and I think if you're the Jund player or the Death Shadow player, that you should do this. And then if I wanted to play Tidebinder Mage, then I would back you up. I have that right. But this would give you the best chance of forgetting that you have that you're allowed to do that you're allowed to back up the game to make sure that your Tidebinder Mage comes into play. So yeah, he just attacks with the Tarmogoyf, and then I was thinking about, do I back up the game to tap it down with Tidebinder Mage, but ultimately I really wanted to get it wasn't a significant amount of damage. It ends up being 7, but it doesn't. Is it 7 or is it 6? 1, 2, 3. We'll figure it out later. It wasn't really relevant at the time. But I want to play Silvergill Adept, and hopefully I can draw an island so I can deploy my cards much faster from my hand. And if I don't, then whatever, I can keep trucking along with the Aether Vial. Because I definitely don't want to tap out, because then I run the risk of getting Kolaghan's commanded, and that would just feel terrible. So I opt to take the damage from Tarmogoyf, and then I would play Silvergill Adept at end of turn, and draw a card. And I'll be very happy. More cards in my hand. So I thought that was a very good way to maybe try to make me forget that I have an opportunity to play Tidebinder Mage, because he knows I have it in my hand. He knows I have Harbinger in my hand, he knows I have Tidebinder Mage in my hand, and he knows that I have Dispel in my hand. These are the known cards he knows about. And as you see, and as I've explained before, I have... when the first time he Thoughtseize, or he Inquisitioned me or whatever, I turned my cards upside down, and then when he Thoughtseize me and took another card, I forgot to keep those cards upside down. But in general, you should keep cards that your opponent known cards to your opponent, either upside down in your hand, or maybe recorded on a piece of paper to know what your opponent knows. So now we're going to count up the Tarmogoyf. Creature, enchantment, artifact, sorcery, land. Yeah, it was only 5 powered, I guess. So I play my Silvergill Adept to draw a card. Spreading Seas, not bad, but I still can't tap out. Also, Spreading Seas not looking super great over here. It's got a lot of lands available. But I get in for some damage. And this is not irrelevant damage. I mean, now Sam's down to 8. Now he's down to 7. Sam's got to be careful. Merfolk can just crack in for the win at any moment. And if I understand correctly, Sam's running out of fetchable lands. I think he's got a Godless Shrine and a Swamp left in his deck. Like, these decks actually only have a limited amount of lands, and I've seen quite a few Death Shadow games up to this point where they just completely run out of lands that they can fetch. So now, for some reason, here Sam declares his attackers, but it doesn't matter. I was planning on Tidebindering this right now anyway. Sam Black also draws Abrupt Decay, which is an interesting card. I can't dispel that one. I should also say that I have another Tidebinder Mage in my hand, and for that reason, and I really don't want to be using the Harbinger of the Tides on the Tarmogoyf, because I really want to save that for a Death Shadow if he ever finds one. The Tidebinder Mage can target the Tarmogoyf, but the Tidebinder Mage cannot target Death Shadows. But it doesn't matter. So, in response to the tap ability, he Tarfires the Tidebinder Mage, and I don't dispel it because I'm still trying to play around Kolaghan's Command. That's such an important card that it would be so backbreaking here. I should actually say Sam has an option to blow up my Aether Vial with the Abrupt Decay. And maybe he declines to do that because if I just draw a land... But as the game turned out, well, he doesn't know that he's about to draw a bunch of creatures. So from this point, it looks like he needs the Abrupt Decay, because if he Abrupt Decays the Aether Vial, it will choke my mana if I don't draw any more lands. But if I draw an island, then I can start deploying my hand all over again. I can play like Harbinger of the Tides, attack for 2 with Silvergill Adapt, and then maybe, who knows, play a Lord, and I still have Dispel backup. So he would be empty-handed except for the Kolaghan's Command, except I have the Dispel for that. So maybe that's why he didn't really want to waste the Abrupt Decay, but I'm just saying this was probably the best opportunity to blow up my Aether Vial. So he's going to save it for any more creatures. And also, I didn't mind a Tidebinder Mage dying because I do have another one in my hand. So, keep trucking along. Got a 7-powered Tarmogoyf versus 2-powered Silvergill Adept. I pass the turn again. Don't know what I drew here. Was it another Dispel, or was it like a Vendilion Clique? Okay, so Sam draws another Tarmogoyf. I don't understand why he does this, though. Like, it shuts off Harbinger of the Tides, but let's say I do play Harbinger of the Tides and bounces Tarmogoyf. Who cares? I don't think it's like all that big of a deal. I think the Abrupt Decay... Maybe he had to wait for another threat, because now that he has 2 big Tarmogoyfs, it's a lot easier for him to attack through them. I draw a land. Yeah, so I guess now that he has the 2 Tarmogoyfs, he's willing to blow up the Aether Vial, because at some point, these 2 Tarmogoyfs will overpower my dinky little creatures, even if I'm playing them 1 a turn. So I've drawn the Mutavault, but unfortunately I can't use the Mutavault. Well, I can use the Mutavault mana because I do have Spreading Seas in my hand, but I really want to be deploying the creatures. Spreading Seas is totally fine, though, because I do have a Master of the Pearl Trident in my hand, and at any moment he can die. Like, at the moment, he only has this Kolaghan's Command in his hand, so long as he doesn't have Abrupt Decay, I can play Island. The next turn I can kill him if I can hold up a blue up with Lord of Atlantis and get Lord of Atlantis in play. Right now is definitely a very good time for Oboro if I ever had it. It would be wonderful. So he attacks with the Tarmogoyf. It's pretty big, but anyway, I have no reason to block it whatsoever. On top of that, if he somehow has Temur Battle Rage in his hand, I still have the Dispel. So we do a quick count of what we've got. Unfortunately, we're copying the artifacts twice. The only relevant card from my deck would be just the Spreading Seas. So anyway, Tarmogoyf happens to be 7-powered, which is very convenient because I can take 2 hits from him. And I don't have to be too afraid of going down to 1 because I still have that Dispel in my deck. I have to mention, though, that my situation's pretty fragile. Like, I mean, if he draws Liliana the Last Hope, if he draws Thoughtseize, if he draws Inquisition, I mean, I can get in a lot of trouble here. One Inquisition eats up the Dispel, and then, like, he can Kolaghan's Command the Tidebinder Mage, bring back Street Wraith, and I'm just crushed. Fortunately, he keeps drawing creatures, which is something I can actually beat. Unfortunately, I don't draw any land, though. I draw Lord of Atlantis. I should actually mention, I didn't think about this during the match, but all the cards in the Death Shadow deck only do about 2 damage. If you think of Tarfire, it's 2 damage, Kolaghan's Command is 2 damage, Collective Brutality gives -2/-2. That's going to be very important going into the future of playing this game, because you might not want to lead off with Silvergill Adept. You might want to lead off with a Lord, trying to get a second Lord in play, and then now you have protection against all those removal spells. That's something I wasn't thinking about during these matches, that looking back on them, something I want to be thinking about. Of course, they can still, like, Abrupt Decay followed up by Tarfire, or Fatal Push followed up by Tarfire. But I'm just saying, we have a better chance of playing around removal spells if we get double Lords in play. Because right now, my board is pretty fragile. Also, if Silvergill Adept was a Lord, then I could even more comfortably just play another Lord from my... Well, I mean, if Silvergill Adept was a Lord, I would win here. I could just attack with the Tidebinder Mage and Mutavault for the win. So I play the Silvergill Adept, I find another land. I'm going to continue to be patient here. Okay, I have an option, actually, to play Harbinger of the Tides here. Remember, I was playing around Kolaghan's Command this entire game because of my Aether Vial, but the Aether Vial is blown up. Kolaghan's Command still has 2 good targets. It can target the Street Wraith in the graveyard, which is not an irrelevant creature, and it can target the Tidebinder Mage. So if I tap out to play Harbinger of the Tides, I guess it just doesn't really do anything. I'll return a Tarmogoyf to Sam's hand, but he'll blow up the Tidebinder Mage. And I'll still have 4 creatures out, but then he has no removal spell. And he can still attack with 2 creatures. I have to block 1. Then I have 3 creatures out. Maybe it doesn't change very much. It's just not a particularly great play. I guess the advantage of tapping out to play Harbinger of the Tides is if he does use Kolaghan's Command, he no longer has a burn spell that goes to my face. Yeah, whatever. So again, a lot of cards that Sam can draw. A lot of good cards. I mean, even if he drew a Tarfire here, that would kill me. I think he's got... He doesn't have a mountain in his deck. I might have to look at his list. I'm pretty sure he had 3 red sources, though. Let's go quickly check out Sam's. I'm going to quickly look at his list. If there's one thing I wish I could have wrote down about his deck, which I'm not allowed to, it would be... It would have been, what lands are you playing? So he plays with Blood Crypt, Stomping Ground. Was that it? Yeah, that's it. So even if he drew Tarfire, it was useless because he can only play Kolaghan. He can only play either Kolaghan's Command or Tarfire. That's it. Yeah, his 2 red sources are on the board. Or even if he drew a second Kolaghan's Command, it wasn't going to do any good for him. And for the record, Sam has 6 fetchable lands in his deck. He's got 4 of them on the board. So now he's starting to do the calculations, like he could be in trouble. He doesn't know I have a Lord, though. He doesn't know I have a Lord. And that's, I should say another thing, when I attacked, when I played Silvergill Adept, I forgot that Harbinger of the Tides, like he already knew about my Harbinger of the Tides, but and I showed the Harbinger of the Tides anyway. But the reason I really want to show Harbinger of the Tides, let's say Sam didn't know any cards in my hand. I want to show Harbinger of the Tides because it doesn't change combat math on my side. I really hate showing Lords. I mean, you want to show the least relevant card, but in general, I hate showing Lords to my opponent because even if they can assume that I have a Lord in my hand, they don't know that I have a Lord in my hand. If Sam 100% knows I have a Lord in my hand, then he needs to make much more concrete decisions about this turn. For example, actually in this very moment, so he has Kolaghan's Command and a Street Wraith in his hand. He would probably pay the 2 life, or he would fetch twice, pay the 2 life to find streets. Oh no, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. He could pay 2 life to look for... Yeah, fetch his lands, thin his deck out, use Street Wraith, go down to 1 to find a Collective Brutality to try to drain me for 2 while attacking with both the Goyfs. Or something along these lines. Like, he could also just play the cycle the Street Wraith, see what he draws, attack with both the Goyfs, because I'm gonna block with just one of them, go to 1, and then he could Collective Brutality me for the win. But because he doesn't know that I have a Lord in my hand, he doesn't know that he is in super, super, super bad shape. So, because he doesn't know I have a Lord in my hand, he decides to keep building his board up. Gets his swamp. Ta-da! Street Wraith. I'm just curious, like, is he... I mean, I know he's dead given my hand of Lord and Dispel. I wonder if he's dead anyway. For example, I can attack with all the creatures. You can only block... You can block all 3. I get 2 damage. No, yeah. Okay, so I need a Lord. I was just thinking, like, that Bloodstained Mire can only fetch for a Godless Shrine at this point. So I play my Lord, super excited, attack for the win, and I seal the deal. Sam Black, you taught me everything I know about mono blue devotion, about the Master Waves, about the Tidebinder Mage. But now it is my devotion to blue, which brings me to the finals. So that was my match against Sam Black. Yeah, great match. It was really exciting. Through super, 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 super tight play, I was able to pull it through. But it was a very delicate match because, like, of course, just like I explained, Sam could have drew a lot of things that could have made my life incredibly poor. My quality of life could have fell to the bottom of the earth really quickly. On the other hand, I could have just drew like a 3rd island and I would have started playing out a lot of my cards also very quickly while keeping up this Dispel. You know, but whatever. That's Magic. Very interesting match. Very interesting match. The Death Shadow match. So like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for making me a part of your daily routine. And thanks to all my patrons supporting me on Patreon. This has been Nikachu talking about his semi-final match against Sam Black's Death Shadow.